Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Sasheen of Women in Transition podcast. If you're listening on any of the podcast stations, hello. If you want to see my face, please come over to YouTube to the Dr. Sasheen channel and you can watch this podcast on video, which is infinitely more fun than just listening to my voice. But just in case you can't, welcome to Women in Transition. I am Dr. Sasheen, your host, and I am here to guide you into the next best chapter of your life, especially if you're of the Gen X generation, which I am. Here we believe in rule number one, which is your peace is non-negotiable, and rule number two, which is that nothing and no one gets to mess with, thank you, censors, rule number one. Sorry, I've got something in my eye and it's just been annoying me for quite a while. So, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about the new normal. So, it's been an interesting 365, right? And this time last year, I made a video called The New Rules of Engagement. And in the New Rules of Engagement, I introduced you to the rules, which is rule number one, your peace is non-negotiable. And rule number two, nothing and no one gets to mess with your peace. I use a little more colorful language in that video. Go check it out. It's on the YouTube channel, pinned at the very beginning when you go in. It's the first video that you're going to see. Check it out. So we are now 365 days later, few more since we're beyond the election. And I want to talk to you about the new normal because it's time to talk about what life is going to look like next for you. And this is really important because I don't like to sugarcoat the political landscape that we're in. I don't spend a ton of time talking about it on this channel because this channel is about helping Gen X women get into their next best chapter of life. But I would be remiss to not point out that we have entered some murky, muddy, and unfortunate waters at this point in time in history. But for Gen X women, we were going to hit some of the murkiness regardless of who was in office, because some of the things that we're going through are indicative of getting a little bit older. Getting older, our parents getting older, our kids growing up, if you have them, our bodies changing, our moods changing, our minds changing, right? We're going to encounter some of the things that we're going through now anyway, by virtue of just being alive on the planet and our bodies doing what bodies do, evolving. The added layer of the political climate, the cultural climate that's going on does lend itself to make us ask our questions with a little more gravity to them, right? With a little more, there's a little more weight to our answers now. But that weight isn't distributed evenly. And I want you to take a moment and remember, regardless of where you are in your journey, if you're watching, this darn eye is killing me. No matter where you are in your journey, no matter what hashtag on the timeline you find yourself standing on, your journey is still yours individually, regardless of what other people around you may be going through. And I like to say this, and I want to keep reminding people that no one goes through every facet of something the same. And so we can get really caught up in narratives, especially if you spend a lot of time on social media, which I try not to do as much anymore, especially this past year. But we can get really caught up in getting mad at people for living a version of life that doesn't reflect what we believe to be wrong with the world, or for living a version of life that does reflect what we think to be wrong in the world, but not treating it in the same way that we do. So we get really irritated. And here's the thing. I am very clear that you've got to be careful who you surround yourself with at this point in time. But it's been a year, and I would hope that at this point you have made some good strides in recognizing who you can trust and who you cannot, beloveds, right? Like if you had a rude awakening last year, chances are your circle of people have kind of settled out and figured that wherever they've landed in your life, that's where they're going to be. If that is true, then it's time for you to move on from worrying about your circle. If that's not true and you're keeping some relationships around because they're family, because it's too hard to get to let them go, even though they're really toxic for you, this is the time for you to start asking yourself what your normal needs to look like and move accordingly. In other words, you don't get to spend another 365 days playing nice with folks who would not spit on you if you were on fire. Okay. The new normal is a requirement now that says my life is going to look like this. And I'm going to have people in it that do this and who I can support in their journey and who support me in mine and who do not. And I repeat, do not disturb my peace, draw me into their trauma drama, um, spend all of their time being mad that I'm not actively protesting in the way that they think I should be and be really mad at me for not being economically insolvent at the moment. You don't have to spend your time another 365 days trying to figure out the best way to cut some things out of your life that should have been cut out of your life 365 days hence prior, right? So the new normal is now the requirement that going into the next year, because ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there listening, this is the beginning of year two under a very murky, muddy, changing cultural tide. Year two isn't going to be better than year one, okay? Unless some drastic things change. And even if they do change, some of the damage that has been done in the world has been done. But I want to remind you as you look towards 2026, not everyone has decided to embrace um, a path of destruction. Not every country, not every group of people, not every body of people, right? There are people who are actively looking to put and stitch together, not just stitch together, but to create new roads and new ways of living that don't require them to engage with the madness of the moment. It is okay to engage with the madness of the moment. I encourage you to figure out your place in this murkiness. But I will also encourage you to look at people who are like maybe taking a little bit of a different path as people who are taking a different path from you, doing their path the way that they need to do it, and not judge them that it's not your path that they're walking, because your path is different. And I want to be clear, if you are intent in staying in the trauma dump, this is probably not the podcast for you. Because over the past 365 days, I've made it abundantly clear, and I will continue to do so in every episode. My goal is to talk you off the cliff, out the door, and into the next best chapter of your life. Gen X women have too many things already that we have to contend with and deal with. We've lived through recessions, depressions, job markets bottoming out. Has it ever been this bad? Absolutely not. We didn't have pseudo fascists running the country, right? Not even pseudo. We're in a different cultural moment. That is a moment in a particular place, one that none of us are bound to stay in if we choose to move on. And none of and not one that any of us are bound to accept as if it's just the new status quo and we just have to live with it because what else are we going to do? I mean, I guess you could go sit on the couch and wait until things get better. Call me when it does. Or it's time to look around and go, what is my new normal going to need to look like so that I can continue to thrive and not just survive under someone else's thumb? Because that is not what we're designed to do. We are Gen X generation. We don't just survive under someone else's thumb. We innovate, we figure it out. We make moves that allow us to make moves, and then we make more moves until we get to the place where we're better than where we came from. That is who we are. That is the way we've always moved through the world. And that is the way that we will continue to move through the world. So if you've hit 42, 43, 45, 50, 55, if you're in the Gen X generation and you're looking around going, yeah, this is bad. But also I've got perimenopause and I've got potential job issues, or I have no job issues, except that I just hate my job, right? Or I've run a business and I'm tired of running a business and I just want to go back to work, or I'm tired of living here and I want to move, but I got kids and I got parents and I got stuff happening. I'm talking to you. What's going to be the new normal in 2026 for you? What is it that it's time for you to settle into and say, okay, 2025, I had to get over the emotional upheaval of what happened, and then I had to contend and deal with all of the things that started rolling out because of it. 2026, I get to make some different decisions because I've seen the playbook. If you haven't read the playbook, I can't stress enough that you should go read the playbook. But that's the playbook in the political world. Your world isn't all politics. It is political, but it is not all politics. And that's a distinction that we want to keep clear as you start thinking about your new normal. So, what does it need to look like for you to go into 2026 in a way that can leave some of the 2025 angst behind? What does it mean for you to get into yourself and get out of the echo chamber of social media to chart your next path, to do your next thing, whatever that thing may be? It is time to normalize your next best chapter and to start figuring out where your big rocks lie because they've probably changed in the past 365 days. They probably look a little different than they did when you woke up last year this time. So you have to keep in mind that it is okay to be looking down the barrel at the new year and not be quite sure what you're going to do next, but know that you're not about to spend another 365 days like you have been, right? Like it's okay to say, I don't know maybe what's coming next, but what I do know is I'm not about to spend another 10 days the way that I spent the past 365 because now is the opportunity to determine a new normal. So what does that mean? What is when I say the new normal, what does that mean? That could mean anything for you. Anything at all. Because one of the things about the late stages of capitalism in a country is that the systems that were always supposed to be there to kind of keep things going start to fall apart. But there also means that some of the um how do I put this? Some of the things that prevented you maybe from thinking outside the box just aren't important anymore. The box isn't important anymore because you've got a whole different reality that's happening around you. And especially if you've reached a certain age and you're going through some physical changes on top of all the other stuff, right? The box that you used to live in is not big enough for who you have to become. And you don't want it to be. But here's the kicker: you don't actually want this box. You want to tear this box apart and preferably burn it if you could. Because what you really want to do is figure out who you're going to be next. That is what the next best chapter is. It's the question of who am I going to be next? What is it that I intend to do next? And when I teach my Life Reimagined seminar, and I'm expanding the Life Reimagined seminar, it's going to be called the Life Reimagined Experience. And I'm going to offer it as a 2-hour workshop a couple times a month. And we're going to go over each of the 5 smart steps in those 2-hour blocks together. And we're going to build that life that you are wanting in your next best chapter. So if you had a chance to take the workshop, the teaser workshop this past year in 2025, congratulations. The next year, 2026, it expands out. We get more stuff going on inside of it, and it's no longer going to be free. So I'm just letting you know. But one of the things that I've added are some exercises, and one of the exercises is one that I do and have done with my divorce clients, which is you got to stop letting all the pebbles fill your jar of life. You got too many pebbles. And the pebbles are these things that you say yes to, that you continue to do, that are obscuring your big priorities. And because there's so many pebbles in your jar, your big priorities are just subsumed. You can't even see them anymore. You don't even know that they're there, which leads me to 2 questions for you. Number 1, are they still your priorities? Because if you can cover them over so many times that they're practically drowning in quicksand and you're not trying to dig them out, then they're not a priority. You're just saying that they're a priority for you. That's number 1. And number 2, if they are still your priorities, why aren't you working harder for them? Because you're not protecting yourself by giving into all the pebbles in your life. And so we work through, what does it look like to actually take your priorities and make them immovable objects in your life, objects that you protect as if they are part of rule number 1, because they are. Because they are. And the struggle happens when I say, and you only get 5 of them. I just did the workshop, and one of the participants said, "Just 5?" And I said, "Just 5." And I was like, because if I give you 10, then you're gonna need 15. And honestly, ask yourself, honestly, can you really have focus on more than 5 major buckets in your life? Major buckets. When I talk about immovable rocks, I'm talking about boulders the size of Mount Everest. The things that you are carving the story of your life into, the rocks that you look at and go, that's never going to come down. It is a permanent structure unless I blow it down and start again, right? And if you have protected your immovable rocks, then when the waters roll down and the pebbles roll down and the mud and the dirt and the landslides roll around it, they don't go anywhere. And if they do go someplace, it's easy to kind of sift away the dust and the dirt because the rock didn't move. Some stuff might have got on top of it, but you're going to go in there and get that rock because it's important to you. And the minute you start sacrificing those big rocks, those big priorities for the little pebbles, you lose your way. You've lost the plot. And that is when the confusion starts, the need to trauma dump all the time, the need to seek social media verification and validation for your life because you have forgotten what your big rocks are. And so part of the new normal for 2026 needs to be you recognizing what are my big priorities and what am I willing to fight for myself that says this is who I'm going to be in 2026, take it or leave it. And if you can't figure that out, you need to figure out how to get on my waiting list for Life Reimagined in January because we're going to be dealing with those and we're going to be tearing down some things and finding your foundation, which is what your big rocks should be helping you stand on, is the foundation of the rest of your year. I'm not talking about the rest of your life because listen, what you do at 40, you may decide you don't want to do at 45. What you do at 45, you may decide you don't want to do at 55, right? But what you have to do is find the big rocks of your life that you take with you and that you allow to carry you when the pebbles are too much, which you allow to be your anchor when the storms are rolling. Because when you have your anchor in something solid, a foundation that you can stand on, then you're less likely to be swayed every single time there's an avalanche or strong storm, right? So, what are your priorities? What is going to be what you anchor your new normal in? Do you know what those are? Have you taken some time to contemplate those things? I want you to think about that. I want you to wonder and I want you to dream bigger than the box you have existed in for the past 365 days, because those are coming to a close. We're at the end of the year. We're about 2.5 weeks out from 2026. The time has come to shake off the malaise that so many people are laboring under and act, decide, and act. I'll just leave it at that. It's time to decide, and then it's time to take action because decisions without action are just lines in your journal that look really good, but you'll keep writing the same ones until you do something with them. So it's time to decide, and then it's time to figure out the action plan that gets you from where you are now to where you intend to be at the end of 2026. And don't let people tell you that, oh, intentions, everybody's got intentions. You've got to have an intention to get started or you're not going to get started. If you don't intend to get started, you're not going to get started. But you can't stop with the intention, right? That's the point. So, what is your new normal? And what is that going to look like? And who are you going to be? That is only a question that you can answer, but it is a question that can be answered in community so that you don't have to feel like you're just out there all alone, tethered to no one, popping off into the universe with no one to kind of pull you back and go, are you sure about that? Really? And that's why I say this community, Women in Transition, in this community, we might all be in separate boats, but we are all helping each other to lift our boats forward, to move our boats forward together. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We meet every Tuesday for a tea break where we just chit chat about life, stuff, us. We had our first annual Bits and Bubbles holiday party. It was fantastic. We'll have another one of those next year. I'm excited to get that started. But you need a community of people who are going to not only put your feet to the fire to get yourself where you want to be in 2026, but to also remind you that it is okay that you don't want the same things next year that you had this past year, and to also gently hold your hand while they say, and it's time to let some things go. And on that note, this is Dr. Sasheen of Women in Transition. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like, subscribe, and share. If you're listening to me, please, please, please let me know that you're out there. I would love to know where you're hearing me from. If you're on Apple or iTunes or iHeartRadio, because the podcast is in all of those places now. So again, this is Dr. Sasheen signing off. I will talk to you soon. Bye.